Hello everyone, Miss Carrie here from Miss Carrie's Creations. Today I'm sharing some sweet pocket cards that you can create with your dies and stencils. Today I'm sharing some ink blending techniques using this leaf stencil, and I'm going to share some ways that I use the pocket die and tags die set on my card making projects. Spring is right around the corner, so I've decided to create some bright floral cards for you using some stencils and dies from Bramble Fox. Even if you're not a card maker, the techniques I share using this stencil and the dies are ones that you can also use on your scrapbooking projects. I'm also going to be using some paper snips, which have some great sentiments that are perfect for cards, and no stamping is needed. As I create the two cards today, I'll be bringing in a few additional supplies to my project, and I'll make sure to add them to the list of supplies I use in the description below. I'm going to be creating two cards today. I'm going to start with the horizontal card. This is going to have a piece of pattern paper spanning the width of the card, and I want my leaf images to peek out from behind it. The backgrounds on each card are going to have some lovely leaf images, which I'm going to create using this stencil. I'm going to place some mixed media paper onto my magnet board and secure the stencil in place. I am masking off a few areas so that I don't get any ink into other areas of the stencil. With scattered straw ink, I'm going to fill in the entire area of this leaf design. Once that's filled in, I'm going to bring in some Shabby Shutters ink. I'm just adding this to the stem and to the base of the leaves, or where you might see a shadow. The next color is Bundled Sage. This one is going to blend over the stems and at the base of the leaves and brushed into the previous green color. Now I'm going to blend these all together with the scattered straw. This brightens up the colors and smooths out any harsh lines that the blending brush might have created. I'm going to repeat this process at the base of the card. I'm starting again with the yellow, then bringing in the yellow-green, then a darker sage green at the base of the leaves. This is blended all together with the yellow. Now I'm using some really bright green colors on this card, but you are welcome to use any colors that you wish on this design. When I remove the stencil, you're going to see there's a bit of a mess in the center of the card, but this is going to be covered up with our pattern paper strip, so we don't need to worry about it. I'm going to go wash off this stencil and then I'll add the next layer of leaves. For this one, I'm going to start with Mowed Lawn, then I'll use Lucky Clover, then Rustic Wilderness. This part of the stencil has a floral piece at the top, which I'm also going to shade green, but you could use smaller brushes like these and change it to any color that you wish. Once I added the three colors of green, I blended them all together with the Mowed Lawn, just like I did with the previous leaf. When you remove the stencil, it's going to look like I added another layer of leaves over the top, and it covers up the brighter leaves that I created in the background. I'm going to add another layer of these on the right side of the card and one near the base of the card in the same three colors of green. I'm forming a bit of a visual triangle here with my colors, and just remember most of these are going to be hidden with that pattern paper strip, so we're just going to have bits and pieces of these peeking out from behind our elements. If you're not a card maker, this design would be great for a scrapbook page. You could have these layers of leaves peek out from behind a photo or a journaling card, or you could layer them around the edge of a layout to create a frame. Now let's take a look at how this is going to appear once we add that yellow strip. Isn't it gorgeous? All right, I'm going to add one more layer of color and then I'll show you how to assemble the card. This one is going to be a bright blue layer of sprigs. I'm going to be using this image on the stencil with the little berries attached, but there is part of the stencil where the berries or buds are separated, so you could create this in 2 different colors if you wanted to. I'm just quickly adding 5 of these to my background using some Uncharted Mariner ink. I am having some of these images go off the edge of the cards to make it almost appear like it's a printed pattern paper that I cut down. All right, I'm going to finish up stenciling these images on my background, and then I'll show you how to put this card together. I have already placed that background onto a blue card base and attached that yellow pattern paper strip with some stitching. The pocket was cut from the same cardstock color as the card base using one of those Bramble Fox dies, and I'm just going to adhere this in place with foam tape. Now I'm going to fill my pocket with some flowers. These are stickers from a Simple Stories collection, but you could use stamped images, dies, or die cuts for your flowers. I'm just going to tuck these here and there and layer them with bits of foam tape to create dimension. Now I chose blue colored flowers to create more of an analogous color palette on my card, but you could definitely use any color of floral images that you wanted to. Now that the flowers have been added, I'm going to use a tag die to create a little banner on either side of the pocket. Using tags for banners or sentiments is a great way to use up those dies. Now, once these are in place, I'm going to go ahead and bring in the sentiment from the paper snips sheet. This says, "It's your birthday." When that was in place, I decided to add 3 little butterfly stickers, and the card was complete. All right, let's go ahead and create another card. This next design is going to have more of a vintage vibe with softer hues of blues and brown. I'm going to start with smaller leaves and use a combination of tea dye ink, vintage photo, and ground espresso. I'm going to be shading in 2 images at the same time, so I've gone ahead and masked off the areas where I don't want ink to end up, and then I'm just adding those colors to each of these leaf images. Just like before, I'm going to layer the colors together and blend them with that lightest color. Now, the nice part about this design is that it can be a little bit messier because we're going for a vintage-like look. If you make a mistake or don't get a leaf filled in all the way, it's absolutely okay. So off camera, I went ahead and finished all of those tan-colored leaves. And now I'm going to create a frame of blue leaves over the top. I'm using that larger image with the florals again, and I'm going to shade them with Faded Jeans and Uncharted Mariner. My pocket design is going to sit in the center, so I'm not worried about filling any of that in. I just want to place 4 of these around the edges. I'm using Distress Oxide inks, but you could use just about any blendable ink in your collection. Distress Oxides are a pigment dye hybrid. The pigment makes them extremely blendable, and the dye helps the ink to dry faster. These inks are also water reactive, and I'm going to show you how that works here in a moment. All right, so all of the leaves are in place, and I have gone ahead and let this ink sit for about 20 minutes. Now I'm going to blend some antique linen over the top of all of these images. You really want to make sure that that ink is set, because if it's still wet, your blending brush is going to pick up the blue and brown colors and smear them across the paper. After adding that soft antique color to the background, I'm going to bring in a little bit of water and splatter it onto the card. These inks are water reactive inks, so once that water hits, you're going to see the color change. I like to pick up the excess water with a paper towel, and once everything is dry, this is what it looks like. Isn't it gorgeous? All right, let's go ahead and assemble this card. I have already backed this with some craft cardstock, and I cut out a pocket from the same color of paper. I used a little bit of vintage photo ink around the edges to distress this, and I wrapped some twine around the top of the pocket. I'm going to add a few flower stickers to this pocket, and then I'll layer some ticket die cuts over the top. You could also add a tag to this pocket with a poem or a photo, or add a little gift card. On a scrapbook page, this would make a great little journaling card pocket. All right, all that's left is the sentiment. This phrase was cut from that paper snip sheet, and it's going to tuck over here on the right. I'm going to go ahead and finish this card, and then we'll take a look at the completed projects. Here are the 2 cards we created today using that stencil and dies from Bramble Fox. Off camera, I took a white gel pen and outlined the leaves on the brighter card. I really like how this looks, and I can't wait to try this technique on a scrapbook page. On the second card, I added a decorative knot and a little enamel heart. This one definitely has more of a vintage or boho vibe, which I really love. I'm going to show you a few close-up photos so that you can see all the details on these cards. The 2 designs I created today used the same dies and stencil, but they have a completely different feel to them. I like being able to share different ways to use a product that you have in your collection. Now remember, if you're not a card maker, all the techniques are ones that you could use on any of your scrapbooking pages, in your planners or journals. I want to thank you for joining me for another project. If you would like to see more of my creations, you can visit my channel or follow Miss Carrie's Creations online. If you have any questions about this project or supplies I used, feel free to comment below. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see what you create.